I smelled something burning before I even got the key in the door. The lock was stubborn, like it had swelled up from too many summers. My boots were still dirty from the walk back from the post office. I had an envelope in my hand, electric bill, big red letters on the front. Normally, I'd toss it on the kitchen table and keep moving. But that day, for no good reason, I stopped. Maybe I already sensed something was off. Maybe I'm just trying to find an explanation. Truth is, I don't know. I shoulder the door. It creaks open just enough for me to slip in. The smell of burned meat hits me square in the face. Grease smoke in the air, that heavy frying smell that's gone too long on the stovetop. My house isn't fancy, but it's mine. Hallway's narrow, I can see straight into the living room from the entry if the door's open. But that day, the door to the living room is cracked just an inch. I don't hear a radio or TV. Just a low hiss from the stove and the pop of fat in a hot pan. I step inside. I notice I've still got my mail in one hand and the boots on, haven't bothered to take them off. Usually, I'd shuffle out of them on the doormat. But I'm not thinking about that. It feels like there's a weight around my chest, and I can't name it yet. I walk through the hallway, each step careful, like I'm sneaking in my own place. There's a weird hush in the air. When I reach the doorway to the kitchen, the first thing I see is the edge of the counter, that old chipped laminate we've meant to replace for years. Then I see a pair of bare legs. Her legs. They're draped over somebody's shoulder. Some guy's shoulder. He's got his back to me at an angle, and all I can see is the side of his face. Dark hair, a couple of days of stubble. And I recognize him a split second later. It's Joe. Joe from the gas station off Route 15. The same Joe who'd come around last month crying about his divorce, the same guy who slept on my couch when he had nowhere else to go. He's got her pinned against the counter, and there's a pan on the stove behind them. Smoke is trailing up from that pan. She's wearing my shirt, my old denim work shirt with the sleeves cut off. I don't understand at first. I'm just standing there, the envelope still in my hand, the bootlace from my left foot dragging loose on the floor. I watch the smoke get thicker, and I can almost taste the bitterness of it. She sees me before he does. She glances over Joe's shoulder. Her eyes go wide for half a second, then she just grabs a paper napkin off the counter and holds it in front of her chest, like I'm the neighbor who walked in on an awkward moment, like I'm nobody. Like she's got no reason to be ashamed. She looks me straight on, then away, like she's thinking of how to handle this. Joe turns his head to see who she's looking at. He doesn't move off her, just looks over. He's not surprised, not flustered. He just says, "You're early." Like I'm a coworker who showed up to the job site an hour before shift. I don't say anything. The only sound is the meat sizzling in that pan, spitting oil onto the stovetop, making little pops that land on the linoleum. There's a dull roaring in my ears like a vacuum. Then I notice the envelope in my hand. I remember feeling the glue strip under my thumb, how it was half unsealed, threatening to spill the paper out. My heartbeat thuds once, heavy as a hammer, and I let out a breath I'd been holding. She takes a step back, adjusting that napkin. Joe turns his head like I'm a passing breeze, and I see him set his jaw. He's not scared. He's barely interested. Then he turns back to her, like he's waiting for me to leave so they can keep going. It's surreal. I remember thinking, he's not even going to pretend he's sorry. Then I realize, of course he isn't. I'm the fool who gave him a place to sleep when he was down and out. Must have been easy pickings. I just step back from the doorway. She opens her mouth, but I don't hear words. I see her lips move, but my brain stops registering the sound. I turn around and walk out. I leave the door wide open behind me, the old hinges scraping, letting out a squeal. My shoulders brush against the doorframe. The hallway is dark compared to that kitchen light. Feels colder, too. I can hear the hiss and pop of the skillet as I pass by the living room, heading for the front door. My boots stomp each step louder than usual. I don't look back. Once I'm outside, I stand on the porch for a moment. The sky's clear, sun heading down but not gone yet. I've still got the envelope in my hand. My truck is parked crooked in the driveway, front bumper chipped from the last run-in with a parking barrier. A bird squawks somewhere overhead. I walk straight to the truck, get in, start the engine. My knuckles tighten on the steering wheel, and my ears still buzz with that empty sound. I look at the door I left open. Something in me thinks about going back, slamming it, maybe shouting. But I don't do it. I can't find the energy. So I back out and drive away. I don't head anywhere in particular at first. My breath is coming in shallow bursts, my mouth tastes like copper. When I realize I'm about to pass the turn for the highway, I swing the wheel and follow the sign for the gas station. Joe's station, the one he bought a few months back. I don't have a plan yet. I just know I'm heading there. Traffic is light on that stretch of road. I notice an old man on his porch, rocking chair squeaking, and a dog with a limp tail. Then I see the station up ahead. It's small, a two-pump setup with a single office and a garage in the back. There's a chain-link fence behind the garage, and that's where he keeps a battered old boat. He's been saying for months how he wanted to fix it up, maybe take it to the lake. He used to talk about it while we drank in my living room, back when I thought he was a friend. I park in the far corner of the gravel lot, engine running for a second. My mind is blank, but my veins feel hot. I kill the engine, step out. Nobody's behind the counter. The place is half closed. I see the office door is locked from the inside, a "Back in 10" sign taped up. The boat's behind the fence. It's a small runabout with a worn seat cushion, outboard motor that probably hasn't run in years. Next to it, there's a row of stacked tires, a couple of barrels for used oil, and a dirty canister of gasoline. My eyes fix on the canister. Something snaps in me, and I know exactly what I'm about to do. I walk around the fence, the chain rattling. I find the door to the garage side. It's not locked. Joe must have left it that way. Inside, the place smells like rubber and old grease. I see a metal pry bar leaning in the corner, a long piece of steel with a curved end. I grab it without thinking. I walk out, slip behind the boat. The aluminum hull is rust-stained around the rivets. The motor's propped on a wooden stand. I check the canister. There's enough gas to do damage. I lift it, hear the liquid slosh. I wedge that pry bar under the handle of the garage's back door, jam it tight. Then I circle back around, douse the inside of the boat with the gas. I splash some on the motor, some in the hull. The smell is sharp and dizzying. A voice in my head says, "This is insane, you're out of your mind." But my hand is steady. Then I grab a lighter from my pocket. I used to carry it for barbecue nights. I flick it. The flame jumps. For a moment I hesitate. But then I bend down and set the flame to the gas-soaked interior. A whoosh of heat and light blasts up. I stumble back, blinking. The boat catches fast, flames licking up the edge of the hull, black smoke curling. It's violent and hungry. Sparks fly toward the tires, but I don't care if they catch or not. I just stand there, watching that boat burn, hearing the fiberglass crack. My heart's pounding so hard, I can feel it in my temples. Then I hear voices. Joe's voice, high-pitched, yelling. He's scrambling around the fence, cussing, screaming. "What the hell are you doing?" He tries to yank the door to the garage, but I've pinned it. He can't get through. His eyes are wild, like he's seeing something he can't believe. He pounds on the door, tries to climb the fence. The heat from the flames forces him back. He yells my name, says, "Don't do this!" I just watch him, not moving. I see the reflection of the fire in his eyes. He looks at me like I just killed a man. I feel nothing. No guilt, no fear, just a strange calm. My arms hang at my sides. After a moment, I start to walk back to my truck. He's still hollering, banging on the fence, but it's all background noise. I climb in, turn the key, and see the smoke rising in my rearview mirror. Joe's shouts pierce the windows, faint and useless. It's like I'm in a sealed bubble. I drive off, gravel crunching under my tires. I don't look back again. The sun is dipping down behind the trees, and I'm on a quiet road, heading nowhere. I don't even know what day of the week it is, feels like all the days mashed into one. My phone buzzes in my pocket. I ignore it. Probably her. Probably Joe. Doesn't matter. I keep driving, gripping the wheel until my fingers hurt, until the sweat on my palms makes it slick. That's the last clear memory I have from that evening, the color of the sky going orange and purple, and the road stretching out in front of me like it had no end at all. I didn't go home that night. Drove around until the moon was halfway up, burning gas I didn't have money to waste. I ended up in a parking lot by an old diner, headlights off, just sitting there with the engine ticking. I must have sat like that for an hour, my mind blank as a busted TV screen. Sometime after midnight, I pulled out, found a cheap motel. The clerk behind the counter didn't even look at me when I paid in cash. Room smelled like old cigarettes and cleaning fluid. I threw myself on the bed, still wearing my clothes, boots scraping the comforter. I didn't move until morning. Sunlight woke me up. No alarm, just that harsh stripe of light through the gap in the curtains. I felt like my head was stuffed with cotton. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, hearing the distant hum of traffic from the highway. Didn't feel like I'd slept, but a few hours must have passed because my phone showed it was past 9. A couple missed calls, a text from her. "Where are you?" I read the message maybe 3 times, then set the phone down. I didn't have an answer for that. Not one that'd make sense. Eventually, I got up, splashed water on my face in the tiny sink. I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were bloodshot, lines around them deeper than I remembered. My hair, thinning on top, stuck out in random angles. I looked older than I ever had. Thought about grabbing a razor and cleaning up, but decided against it. Grabbed my wallet, my keys, walked out. The clerk was gone. A lady in a floral shirt was behind the desk. She smiled politely. I didn't smile back. Outside, the air was warm. I smelled wet asphalt from a night's drizzle. My truck sat under a flickering lamp post that had gone dark in the daylight. I climbed in, turned the key, then just sat there. I could have driven anywhere. Some part of me wanted to keep going, maybe cross state lines until the gas money ran out. But that felt ridiculous. I had a life back there. A job, bills to pay, a mother who'd call and ask questions. I knew I couldn't just vanish. So I drove back into town, straight to the parking lot of a grocery store, and found a corner space under a tree. I tried to gather my thoughts. The day after you burn a man's boat, after you catch your wife cheating in your own kitchen, how do you go back to normal? You don't. That's the thing. You don't just shrug it off. And you sure as hell can't pretend it never happened. I grabbed the phone, scrolled through the contacts until I found my boss's number. Dialed. It rang a few times. He picked up. I told him I wasn't feeling well, needed a couple of days. He sighed, asked if everything was okay. I said sure, just a bug. He said all right, come back when I can. That was it. I sat there another hour, watching people come and go with their groceries. A mother holding a toddler, an old vet leaning on a walker, a teenager in a bright uniform collecting carts. My stomach growled, but I couldn't muster the will to eat. Instead, I just thought about Joe. The look in his eyes when the flames took his boat. The way he screamed like I'd ripped something out of him. Then I thought of her face, behind that napkin, not even trying to cover up the rest. It was all jumbled in my head. Rage, regret, maybe a weird sense of relief. Like at least now I knew the truth. No illusions left. By noon, I decided I had to face the house at some point. I drove there slowly, every turn feeling heavier than the last. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I noticed the front door was closed but not latched properly. The wind could have pushed it open if it blew hard. I got out, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the porch. The air smelled stale, like the ghost of that burning pan was still inside. I pushed the door open. Floor squeaked like always. The hallway light was off, the living room curtains drawn. I heard nothing, no movement. I crept through. Kitchen was empty. The pan on the stove was blackened, lumps of charred meat still stuck to the bottom. The stove was off, at least. A couple plates lay smashed on the tiles, like someone had dropped them. Flies buzzed around the sink. My shirt, the one she wore, was on the floor in a heap. I picked it up. It smelled like sweat and stale cooking oil. I held it for a moment, then tossed it in the trash. Next, I walked through the rest of the rooms. She wasn't there. Bedroom was untouched except the sheets were half off the bed, pillows scattered. I didn't bother to fix anything. I just stood there, arms hanging at my sides, trying to figure out what to do. There was a faint hum from the air conditioning. That's all. Part of me waited for her to walk in, say something. But the silence stayed thick. I ended up grabbing a trash bag, walking around, and picking up random junk. The broken plates, a spilled can of soda in the living room, scraps of mail that had fallen from the table. I found the electric bill from yesterday, half crumpled under a chair. I put it all in the bag. Maybe I did it because it was the only thing I could control. Clean up the mess, at least the physical one. When I was done, the bag was heavy, and my back hurt. I realized I hadn't eaten since the day before, so I rummaged through the fridge. Not much there. Some cold pizza from who knows when. I tried a bite, but it tasted like cardboard. I spat it out. That's when I heard her car pull up. She slammed the door, hurried up the porch steps, came in. Saw me in the kitchen. She froze for a second, eyes flicking over the trash bag, then back to my face. "You're here," she said. No hi, no sorry, no explanation. Just those two words. I nodded. Didn't speak. She set her purse down on the counter. She stopped. Looked around. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. Could have said a lot of things. I could have asked her about Joe, about how long. But I felt too hollow for questions. I just looked at her. Her hair was pulled into a messy ponytail, face blotchy like she'd been crying or yelling. She ran a hand over her mouth and stared at the burnt pan on the stove. "You broke him," she said suddenly, voice shaky. "His boat. He loved that stupid boat. You had no right." She stopped again, maybe realizing the stupidity of that statement. Maybe not. "He's been calling me all night, all morning, screaming. He wants me to." She paused. "I don't even know what he wants." I stayed silent. She took a shaky breath. "You can't just burn someone's property," she said a little louder. "They'll press charges. You're acting crazy. You need help." I looked at her. Tried to see the woman I married. Tried to find the memory of her that used to make me smile. But all I saw was a stranger who shared her face. My chest felt tight. I kept silent, maybe because words would come out wrong. Or maybe because there was nothing left to say. We stared at each other. Her eyes darted around, maybe looking for a reaction from me. I gave her none. She exhaled, grabbed her purse again, and mumbled something about me being a psychopath. Then she walked out the door. I listened to her car peel out of the driveway. I didn't try to stop her. I ended up sitting on the couch, arms on my knees, head hanging down. The quiet was too loud. Her words circled in my brain, about me being crazy, about Joe. But in that swirl of anger, confusion, everything else, I just felt numb. I reached for the TV remote, clicked it on. Some game show host was screaming about prizes. I stared at that for a minute, then turned it off again. Couldn't handle the noise. The silence, though, wasn't any better. At some point, I grabbed my keys, walked out back to my truck. Didn't care where I was going, just not there. Drove aimlessly. Past the place where Joe's station stood, but I didn't slow down. The black marks from the fire were still visible along the back wall, though. I caught a glimpse in my peripheral vision. Smoke stains near the fence. Looked like everything was shut. Nobody at the pumps. I don't recall how long I stayed out. Might have been just a few hours, might have been till dark. Got a text from my mother. "Call me." She rarely texts, so that startled me. She had to have heard something. Word travels fast. I shoved the phone away and kept driving, passing farmland, a row of mailboxes, a half-collapsed barn. Didn't want to think about Mom or how to explain. Didn't want to think about anything except the passing lines on the road, how they came and went in an endless sequence. I ended up calling my mother the next morning. I figured it'd be worse if I waited. She knew something was off. Mothers always do. She told me to come over, have coffee. Her house was only 15 minutes away. Used to be the house I grew up in, an old ranch-style place with squeaky floors and a big yard where my father put up a swing set decades ago. As I pulled up, I saw her standing by the window, curtains parted. She waved me in. She's up there in age, but she's still sharp. She let me in without a hug, just a worried look. She had coffee ready, black and bitter. I took a sip, made a face. She said, "That's what I thought." Then she poured some milk in. We sat down at the small round table in her kitchen, the same one she's had since I was a kid. I listened to the ticking of her old clock on the wall. The tension was thick. She cut straight to it. "I heard about you and her. I heard about Joe's boat, too." I nodded, stared at the coffee in my hands. She exhaled. "Honey, I didn't want to be the one to tell you. But you need to know. It wasn't just that once." She swallowed, lips tightening. "That man's been around for a while." My shoulders stiffened. I didn't ask how she knew. My mother's got friends everywhere, church group, neighbors, old coworkers from the bakery. Word must have traveled. Or maybe she'd suspected for a long time, and nobody told me because they didn't think it was their business. She studied my face, waiting for me to respond. But I just kept staring at the mug. She went on. "It's not new, him and her. You remember when you hurt your back? You were laid up for weeks. Could barely stand?" I closed my eyes, nodded. That was a couple years ago. I'd fallen off a ladder at work, fractured a couple of vertebrae. Spent the better part of a month in bed, hopped up on painkillers, drifting in and out of a haze. She told me she was running errands, picking up medication, going to the pharmacy. Turned out she wasn't. Mom sighed. "She'd leave your place and drive off with Joe. People saw them. I didn't have proof. Didn't want to accuse her of something if I was wrong. But folks talk. Word was she was with him a few times at his apartment. Then he moved in with that other woman, the one he eventually divorced. And your wife, she kept seeing him anyway." My grip on the mug tightened. A rush of images flooded back, me lying in bed, watching the ceiling fan rotate, in too much pain to even stand up and cook. She'd come home, smelling like fresh air, sometimes a little sweaty, claiming she'd been rushing around. She'd set pills on my nightstand, say she was exhausted. I never questioned it. "And the money?" I muttered, more to myself than to Mom. "He loaned me cash for surgery. I thanked him like a damn fool." Mom reached out, patted my hand. "It's not your fault. You didn't know." I stared at her hand, veins protruding, the skin spotted with age. I felt a shame so deep, I couldn't put it into words. I nodded slowly, a knot forming in my throat. For a second, I thought I might cry, but the tears didn't come. Instead, I felt something hard and cold settle in my chest. The truth was out in the open now, naked, and it left me hollow. Mom poured more coffee, fussing with the pot to keep herself busy. "So, what happens now?" she asked quietly. I shrugged. "I burned his boat. House stinks of burnt meat. She's calling me crazy. I don't know, Ma. I don't know if there's a way back from this." She studied me, her brow knit with worry. "Maybe you talk to her. Work it out." I snorted. "I'm done talking. She made her choice. I'm not gonna grovel." Mom pressed her lips together. "I understand. But watch out for yourself, you hear? Don't do anything else reckless." I nodded. We sat in silence. Finally, I pushed the chair back, kissed her on the cheek, and said I'd call her later. Before I left, she grabbed my hand, squeezed it tight. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner." I didn't have the energy to tell her it was all right. I just gave her a small nod and walked out. In the driveway, The wind carried the smell of her rose bushes. I remembered being a kid, playing in that yard, never dreaming life could get so complicated. I shook my head and got in the truck. As I backed out, I realized something. I felt calmer. Not good, not happy. But steady. That might have been the moment I decided I was through letting them get comfortable on my dime. I was done being the naive idiot, done letting Joe smile in my face while he stabbed me in the back. I'd already burned his boat. But there was more I could do. I spent a few days holed up at home, noticing that she barely came around. When she did, she'd pop in and out, grabbing clothes or a few things from the bathroom. We didn't talk much. Sometimes I'd be in the living room, TV on mute, and she'd walk by with a bag, not even making eye contact. I didn't stop her, didn't say a word. My mother called once or twice to check on me. I gave short answers, not wanting to drag her into my bitterness. There was an odd calm in the house now, like the storm had already hit, and all that was left was broken debris. I heard from a mutual friend, somebody from the local bar we frequented, that Joe was spiraling. He'd lost his divorce settlement, the gas station was in trouble. Rumor was, he'd signed some sketchy loan documents, used fake collateral. I'd half listened to that kind of gossip in the past. Didn't matter to me then. But now I paid attention. A plan started forming. Not a plan to get revenge with my own fists, no more direct violence. I wanted something that'd cut deeper and last longer. If he thought the boat was bad, he was in for a surprise. I spent hours on the internet, reading about how to file complaints, how to report fraud to banks. Figured out that if I could find the right place to send documents, the system would do the work for me. I didn't have to beat him up or slash his tires. All I had to do was push a few pieces of paper in the right direction. Let the big dogs handle the rest. It felt cleaner, more precise. The next day, I drove to the library, used one of their computers to dig around public records. Found the business license for Joe's gas station, saw who financed it. Some mid-sized bank in another state. I also found a note in the county records about his mortgage. He'd apparently used the same property for multiple loans. I printed out everything, a small stack of papers. Signed a statement about suspicious activity, then attached it all together with a neat paperclip. I wrote a short letter, calm and polite, with the times, dates, and reference numbers. No threats, no drama. Just a request for them to investigate possible fraud. I dropped that envelope in the mail. As I did, I felt a little knot in my gut. I knew this could ruin him. But that knot disappeared in seconds, replaced by a grim satisfaction. A week passed. I kept my head down, went back to work. My boss asked if I was better from my bug. I just shrugged and said I was fine. People looked at me differently, like they'd heard rumors. But no one asked straight out. I made sure to keep it that way. She stopped by the house a few times that week, but our interactions were limited to tight-lipped nods. One night she tried to talk. Stood by the couch while I watched an old war documentary with the volume low. She hovered, waiting for me to acknowledge her. I just kept my eyes on the screen. She whispered, "We need to talk," but I didn't respond. After a minute, she sighed and walked away. I felt a pinch of sadness somewhere deep inside, but I let it fade. Too much water under the bridge to fix anything with words now. Joe didn't show up in person, which surprised me. Maybe he guessed I had more in store for him. Maybe he was just busy scrambling to keep his world from collapsing. Either way, it gave me peace of mind. I spent my evenings in the old shed out back, tinkering with random junk, an old tackle box, some broken chairs. Kept my hands busy, let my head clear. For the first time in my marriage, I felt like I could breathe without waiting for the next fight or the next lie. Quiet can be lonely, but it can also be a relief. My mother called again, asked if I'd heard from them. I said no. She asked if I'd done anything else. Reckless. And I told her. No, just living. Didn't mention the bank papers. Didn't mention my bigger plan. Mom didn't push. I think she wanted to believe I was calming down. The calm wouldn't last, though. People who cheat paperwork seldom cover their tracks perfectly. And Joe, he was no mastermind. He was sloppy. I'd found enough to get the bank's attention. A few more days went by, then the hammer fell. Late one afternoon, I got a call from a strange number. Normally, I ignore unknown callers, but something told me to pick this one up. It was a woman from that mid-sized bank. She spoke in a polite, clipped tone, asked me to confirm a few details from my complaint. She asked if I could provide any further documentation or dates. I gave her what I had. She thanked me, said they'd look into it. That was that. I hung up, feeling a rush in my blood. Joe had no idea what was coming. But I did. I could almost picture the bank's legal team looking over the records, seeing that something didn't add up. Then the letters would go out. The demands, the repossessions. All above board. No gunfights, no shouting matches in the street. Just the quiet crush of the system. A couple of weeks later, I heard through the grapevine that the gas station was closed. A padlock on the door, a sign saying, "Under bank possession." People talked at the local diner. "Did you hear about Joe? Bank took everything." Some folks seemed sorry for him. Others said it was bound to happen. I kept my mouth shut, sipped my coffee, left a tip. When I drove past the station, I saw a big notice on the window. Joe's truck was gone, too. No sign of him. That evening, I found out more. A neighbor who used to be friendly with Joe said that the bank had foreclosed on his house. They'd confiscated his truck. He was basically out on the street. And guess who was with him? My wife, ex-wife-to-be, I guess. She'd moved in with him after the day she walked out on me. Or maybe she'd moved in before that, for all I know. Now both of them were homeless. She tried to go back to the house, apparently. Discovered that I'd changed the locks. I hadn't actually, but the door must have gotten stuck again. She couldn't get in. She tried her old key, it didn't fit for some reason, maybe the lock jammed. She called, left voicemails. I let them pile up, unopened, on my phone. One afternoon, I was out back, minding my own business, when I heard a car pull up. I figured it might be a package delivery. Instead, I heard a banging on my front door. I stayed in the backyard, behind the shed. They kept pounding. Then I heard her voice, muffled but angry. "Open up! I know you're here!" I leaned against the shed siding, breathing quietly. Didn't answer. After a while, I heard her stomp off. I waited a good 5 minutes before creeping around to see if she was gone. I found the screen door half kicked in, but not broken. I guess she tried to force her way. Didn't succeed. I noticed she'd scratched off some paint near the lock. Must have used a screwdriver or something. That was her knock now. I fixed the screen door, hammered the bent corner back. That night I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "You ruined Joe's life. Are you happy?" No name attached, but I knew it was her. I deleted it without replying. Day by day, the fallout grew. People said Joe was couch surfing with random acquaintances, but wearing out his welcome fast. He was behind on child support for a kid from his first marriage. The ex-wife was threatening to press charges for some unpaid bills. Meanwhile, my wife, let's just call her that for simplicity, was bouncing around too, trying to hold on to some sense of normalcy. They were in it together, maybe, but that bond started fraying the second the money dried up. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't have to. All I did was watch. Went to work, came home, microwaved dinners, and sometimes sat in the garage with a beer, the radio playing some talk show about local politics. I rarely even thought about them now, except when I'd hear a piece of gossip. People told me I seemed quieter, older. I guess that's natural. Betrayal does that to a man. I felt no need to correct them. Let them see whatever they wanted. Then one day, I heard she got locked out of the house Joe was renting. Bank seized it because it was under the same shady loan. Word was, she showed up with her suitcase, tried the key, it wouldn't turn. No forwarding address, nothing. She had to stay with a friend, or maybe a cheap motel. I didn't know, didn't ask. I just heard the rumors and let them pass over me like water. That same week, Joe lost the last of his assets. The official repossession notice came down. The talk at the diner was that he might leave town. Some folks said he was ranting about how I did this to him, how it was all a setup, that I was the real villain. But he had no proof. No camera footage of me mailing documents. No witness that saw me gathering intel. It was just a guess on his part. Most folks who heard him probably rolled their eyes. He'd never been too trustworthy to begin with. One evening, I was in my living room, lights dim, the hum of the old fridge in the background. The phone rang. A second ring, then a third. I picked it up, didn't say anything. I heard breathing on the other side. Then a whisper. Why? It was her voice. I stayed silent. She whispered again. Why are you doing this to me? I loved you. You can't just shut me out. Then she started sobbing. It wasn't the angry tone she'd used before. It was desperate, hollow. Like she knew she was at the end of a rope. She repeated, Why? A couple of times, voice cracking. I listened, my jaw tight. Finally, I said softly, You made your choice. So did I. She tried to respond, but I hung up. The silence after that click felt heavier than anything. I just sat there, the phone in my lap, listening to my own heartbeat. A long moment passed, then I set the phone aside and switched on the radio. It was some old jazz tune, static-laced. I let the music fill the empty house. A few days later, I came home from work and found a small note pinned under a rock on my porch. It was scribbled on a piece of lined paper, words barely legible in the glare of the setting sun. I'm sorry, it read. No name, but I knew whose handwriting it was. I stared at it, then ripped it in half, dropped it in the trash can by the steps. That was the last I ever heard from her in person. So that's how it ended. Strange to call it an ending, because life just keeps going whether you're ready or not. But for me, that's where the story wrapped up. I stayed in the house for a bit longer, but the place felt hollow. Every time I walked through the hall, I'd remember that day I came home early. Couldn't shake the image of Joe with her on the counter, the smell of burnt meat thick in the air. I started sleeping in the workshop out back, an old garage I'd converted into a place to do odd repairs. I dragged an old mattress in there, set up a small TV on a crate, ran an extension cord for power. It wasn't comfortable, but it gave me distance from the memories inside the main house. I didn't bother with big speeches or slamming doors. I just quietly moved out of my own bedroom and let her see me in the workshop if she ever came by. Eventually, she stopped coming by altogether. In that workshop, I found a strange kind of peace. Rusty tools, the smell of sawdust, the hum of a little space heater when the nights got cold. I'd get up in the morning, shuffle into the house to shower, brew coffee, check the mail, then head to work. In the evenings, I'd come back, reheat whatever was in the fridge, and carry it out to the workshop to eat alone, usually with the TV on low volume. I watched fishing shows, local news, sometimes an old black and white western. That calm routine gave me space to think. Or to not think, if that's what I needed. One morning, I got up extra early. Couldn't sleep. Some old tension in my back was flaring up. I decided to head to the lake with my fishing rod. Nothing fancy, just an old spinning reel and a tackle box with the paint chipped off. The lake's a half-hour drive. By the time I got there, the sky was lightening. I parked at the public ramp, carried my gear down to the water's edge. Threw a line out, watched the bobber dance on the ripples. It was quiet, except for birds calling in the distance. I felt the morning chill in my bones, but it was a clean chill. I liked it. I thought about Joe and that boat, how he'd probably pictured himself out here at sunrise, lying in the water, free from his troubles. Now that boat was gone, charred to nothing. His dreams with it. Did I feel guilt? Maybe a twinge, but not much. Not enough to lose sleep over. Everything he lost, he took from me first. I just evened the scales. That's what I told myself. But sometimes I wondered if I went too far, if burning the boat was an overreaction. Then I'd remember the look on his face at my kitchen counter, the way he smirked when he said, "You're early." Like I was the intruder in my own home. Nah. I did what I had to do. I spent an hour fishing, caught nothing but a handful of weeds. Didn't matter. Being out there cleared my head. I reeled in, packed up, headed back to the truck. On the way home, I turned on the radio. Came across some station with a guy who had a thick accent, rolling his R's as he talked politics. It amused me, the way he pronounced words. I let it play. That became part of my new routine: morning fishing, evening talk radio. Simple, almost dull. But it was mine. When I got back to the workshop, I noticed the main house looked emptier than usual. I realized she must have come by at some point, took whatever she felt she needed. Good riddance, I thought. I still had to figure out paperwork for a divorce. But I wasn't in a hurry. The separation was real enough. She didn't fight me on it, and I didn't chase her. We were done. Just two strangers tied by a legal string that I'd snip when I got around to it. A few more weeks trickled by. Work was the same grind. The guys at the job asked less and less about my personal life. People have short memories. The new rumor in town was about somebody else messing around with someone's spouse. Joe had vanished from conversation. Maybe he left town, or maybe he was still around, drifting from one couch to another. I only saw him once, from a distance, outside a bar. He looked ragged, like he'd been sleeping in his clothes. He saw me, and for a second, our eyes locked. Then he turned away, hunched his shoulders, and disappeared around the corner. I didn't follow. That was the last time I saw him in person. My mother visited me a couple of times, bringing homemade pie or a casserole. She said I was too skinny, needed a real meal. I appreciated it. We didn't talk much about the past, or what I'd done. She just told me to take care of myself, reminded me that I could always come over if I needed anything. I thanked her and walked her to her car. She gave me a sad smile before driving off. I wondered what she thought of me now. If she saw me as a damaged son or just a man who got wronged and did what he had to do. Either way, she kept loving me in her own quiet way. Time smoothed the edges. The house never felt like a home anymore, though. So after a few months, I put it up for sale. Didn't get a great price, but enough to pay off the mortgage and find a small place closer to the lake. A one-bedroom shack with a decent roof, a little yard, and a shed big enough for my tools. I moved in slowly, hauling things in the back of my truck piece by piece. Took the old TV, the couch that didn't smell too much like stale memories, and the rest I either sold or left behind. Now my routine is simple. Mornings, I drive out to the lake if I feel like it, toss a line in. Evenings, I sit on my porch with that radio talk show, the host's voice bouncing off the trees. Sometimes, if I can't sleep, I tinker in the shed, fix an old reel or try to carve something out of wood scraps. I don't have big plans. Retirement's creeping up, but I figure I'll keep working until I can't. I don't mind the solitude. Quiet used to scare me, now I need it. I'm not out looking for love or revenge. I've had enough of both. From time to time, I still see that day in my mind, the smell of burnt meat, the smug tilt of Joe's head, the napkin she held like I was some stranger intruding. Then I see the flames licking at his boat, the black smoke billowing. And I feel the weight of that final moment when I sign the papers, put the evidence in the mail, and let the bank do my talking for me. I'm not proud or ashamed. It just is what it is. I did what I had to. I'm no hero, no villain. Just a man who got hurt and closed the door on it all. That's my story, neighbor. Not asking for pity or applause. You wanted to know what happened, I told you. Life doesn't always tie up neat. The loose ends dangle for a while. But I'm at peace with it. I wake up, I breathe, I fish, I listen to that guy on the radio mispronounce everything under the sun. And every day I remember. That's all. I remember, and I keep on going.